Namaskar, I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Welcome to our series Disha. In this new episode, this Disha series is an initiative by Department of Justice to spread legal awareness and literacy. The idea is that when you are more aware of your rights, you're in a better position to fight for them and get justice. The theme of the episode today is inclusive social welfare schemes for transgenders. In our conversation, we'll try and find out and explore the ways in which this section of our society faces challenges and discrimination, and what are the social, economic, and legal remedies available for them. Two special guests are joining me for this conversation. Let me welcome them. I have with me Naz Joshi, India's first international trans beauty queen,
Hello.
also director, Queen Universe Trust.
Thank you.
Also have with me Amrita Sarkar, advisor, transgender well-being and advocacy, India HIV/AIDS Alliance. Warm welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
And if you can begin first with your personal journey, the manner in which what it meant for you to grow up in India as with a transgender identity, the challenges that you faced in those years. Amrita, if I can start with you.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, my heartiest thanks goes to Doordarshan for inviting me. So talking about my own childhood, I was born in a Bengali middle class family. I was born and brought up in Kolkata. And at that point of time, if I talk about 70s and 80s, during that time, there was no Transgender Act. 377 was very much there. So you can well imagine how the situation could be, that difficult part of it. And my mother was a school teacher. My father used to work in a government undertaking company, and I'm their only child. And there were neighbors, there were friends and all. Definitely they were not very happy because from class 3 and 4, I think, I started to cross-dress. I was very much influenced by my mother wearing her sari and all these things. So it's a long journey, and I had to face a lot of problem because I was in a boys' school. So one person who is male assigned at birth and feeling, as a woman, it's so difficult at that point of time. So every day I had to get bullied, verbally abused, sometimes physically by my, batchmates and all, sometimes by the neighbors. So it was very, very difficult. But one thing came in my mind that I have to complete my education by any means, because I could see the difficult part of the Kinnar community at that point of time. Also, they were part of our country only. So the discrimination they had to face. So I was thinking I have to complete my education and I have to do something for my community. So that's the zeal, you can say, that through that I have come across a long years.
Right. Naz, if I can come to you, winning a beauty pageant is often seen as an epitome of a career. But what was it for you to grow up as a transgender and reach where you have?
See, mostly children who are born in 70s. I'm also born in 70s, 1976 born. And we've had almost similar stories. I mean, we didn't have any access to media, any access to social media, and we had no acts, and people didn't know what transgender is. People used to always think it's a hijra, kinner, or whatever. And for me, my story is much similar to what Amrita said. But my story has a little different, that my parents disowned me when I was 7 years old. They disowned me. Then I went to my uncle's place. I had faced molestation, then dance bar, then prostitution. So all these things I've seen in my life, and only because we did not have any knowledge about our rights, about our thing, because we didn't have any rights, so we had no knowledge. We had no knowledge that whether we are transgender or it's only whether we are transgender or is there something missing in us, is there something wrong in us. We used to always ask God, oh God, why you have given us this birth. So similarly, as she said, that education was something which was on her mind. Similarly with me also, my education was on my mind, but I always got it scholarship. I was a very bright student, so I got scholarship in my life. And later on, modeling and beauty pageants happened with accident, and I happened to become first India's cover model. I was a model for a famous magazine. Then I went internationally and I bagged so many crowns for India.
Right.
Yeah,
it's wonderful to know. And as Naz mentioned, Amrita, that in 70s say that not many people knew what it means to be a transgender. But unfortunately, that may even be true now. Many may not what it means to be a transgender and who is a transgender. So for our audiences, before we talk about the rights and reforms, if you could simplify for us in gender and biological terms, what does it mean to be a transgender?
That's a very good question, actually, and thank you for asking that. So I can remember with support from UNDP, United Nations Development Program in 2008, we organized consultations involving the community members from the transgender community and the Hijra community as well. There we came across with working definition of transgender person and a Hijra identified person. So if I talk about a transgender person who is either male or female assigned at birth and following the gender norm of the opposite sex, as simple as that. But if we talk about Hijra community, it's a socio-cultural identity mostly, where there is a guru, there's some protocol, ritual. So if someone is associated with that gharana, with that family only, that culture only, then only he or she can be identified as a Kinnar person.
Right. Naz, now today you're working towards the empowerment of people from your community. Just to get a broad idea about from 1970 to 2024, what are the key grievances that transgender community members come to you with? If you can broadly give us a perspective.
If I talk about 10 years ago, trans children used to come to me that they have been disowned by their families, but now the situations are different. Now, also if we talk about the age, like earlier people used to transform into 30s and 40s. Now kids want to transform in teenagers. They want to be in teens, and also that time, they were more about how they have to come out. Now kids know how to come out from in the families. They are like
by transform, you mean come out in public?
Come out in public. No,
they're
accepting their gender. They're accepting themselves as who they are, and they understand the value of coming out, because they know if they're not going to voice out their opinions, how are they going to ask for their rights? Because in earlier days, like I tell you, you asked me for the comparison. So earlier people never used to come out because they should feel that if you say, okay, I'm a transgender, I'm a lesbian, I'm a gay, the whole world is going to change for me. But today, thanks to the social media, thanks to the government schemes, people are having that kind of confidence that they will come out and they can live a normal life without discrimination.
Right. Amrita, also it is important for us to understand the socio-historical background to the discrimination that the transgender community faces. As we've been talking about that in our scriptures, transgender community is as much part of the society as any other gender. Where did things go wrong? If you could give us a picture.
I think we were very much aware. If we consider our past history in epics in history, definitely we were very much present. If we talk about Ardha Narishwar concept, if we talk about the character like Shikhandi in Mahabharata, even today, if you go to Ajanta, Ellora and all these places, you can see the people having multiple section and same-sex activity as well. So we were very much there. The thing is that this colonial law during the British Emperor, when that came, that actually put some kind of restrictions on people like us. Not only for the transgender people, I think people who are identified as a gay people.
Yeah.
So whoever. So slowly that part changed.
Let's take this conversation forward. Let's talk about the legal rights and reforms. How does the Constitution of India safeguard the rights of transgenders? We know about Transgender Persons Protection of Right Act 2019. Amrita, I understand that you've also been an important participant in the reform of this legislation. If you could take us through your work and also help us understand in simple terms, what does this act have for transgender community?
Okay. So as you know, we know that even before Act, there was an important judgment given by Supreme Court of India, that was NALSA, and that talked about self-declaration part. But this Transgender Act, when it was a bill structure, when it was in a bill format, there were certain things that the community did not like about it, including the definition part. There were other things like that, begging should not be accepted, or only biological parents can be, considered as the actual parents only. So there was certain things that we are not happy with. But thanks to the government so much, they listened to us. We reached out to from time to time some MPs, or we did some kind of a press conference. So we tried to convey this is a very good gesture from the government side, but if you please consider that we had some challenges, if you can think about that. So currently the Transgender Person Protection of Rights Act, I think very, very much progressive act. I think in some, if I compare with this act in other countries, because I have been in many countries for my work, and I have seen the discrimination, legal barriers, everything. I think we are much in a very better
Yes.
position now.
Yeah.
So,
For us, I think getting our passport changed
Yeah.
from male to female or female to male is much easier in our country as compared to other countries where it's like, strictly not allowed. I mean, if you are born as a male, even if you consider as a female, even if you've done all the surgery, you can't change your passport.
And now, about this act and legislation, could you also, again, in simple terms for us to understand, tell us about the provisions that, in fact, show the manner in which it sort of safeguards and empowers transgender community?
So the biggest thing is the discrimination part, where somebody says, for example, we are renting a house, we are going to a public place, and there was a lot of discrimination that was done before that. I mean, I'm not saying that now there is zero discrimination. No, there is discrimination, of course, but people now, in fact,
But that is discrimination is illegal now. Because it is in the
illegal,
law.
yeah, illegal. No, any which way discrimination is
Yes.
illegal because it's not a
But specifically for the community.
community.
now,
Yeah. I
talks
mean, and earlier, for example, if somebody was throwing us from the house, right, for our parents, we couldn't do anything. Now, at least we can take an action against our parents. We can ask them why they're throwing out, only because we identify with a different gender. They cannot, just say, okay, fine, she's not part of my family, she's not my son, or he's not my son. They can't do that. I mean, we have our legal rights to fight with them in the court.
Naz, it's one thing to have a law in place and quite another to make sure that it is implemented and everyone has access to justice. Again, for people who come to you for help, how easy is it for the members of transgender community to get legal aid, go through that judicial process, and what kind of support is available for them to just go through the process of getting justice?
Okay. See, thing is that for our trust, we do have legal advisors who, legally tell them about their rights, because no matter what, like even if we have trans right protection bill, but still there are many kids who are not aware about their rights, especially in small cities. They are not aware about these rights. And what we do is, first of all, we tell them to have a transgender card. We make them registered on the transgender portal, what we have right now at the TG portal. And that's really helping, because the government is also come to knowing that how much population do we have. Because earlier they used to say, okay, fine, what's the use of making such schemes when you don't have population? Like earlier the population was very less that was registered for transgender, but now, thanks to the TG portal, we have that. And the second help that we give them is, we tell them that, okay, they need to have little time to come out in the society, because it's very important for them to be independent, financially independent. And we are working towards making them financially independent by giving them professional courses, like for example, makeup is one, or fashion designing is the second, tailoring is the third, and food making is something. So we are involving them, mostly into them, so that they actually, whatever skills they have, we can just polish them and make them independent.
Right. Amrita, I think Naz mentioned about the National Transgender Portal, and it's a hugely important initiative by the administration. It's a one-stop destination. Tell us a little more about what it does, and for a person who is still grappling with this dilemma of how to deal with one's identity, what does this portal do for them?
Okay. So first of all, we have to know how one can apply through this portal. So there are two ways. One, I can go as a transgender person to the district magistrate office. Otherwise, I can apply online. So through this National Transgender Portal, we have to know, and this is to all my transgender brother and sister, definitely I have to tell you, please register yourself. Because there are so many things. You can have the access to educational scholarship, you can have health insurance part, and to inform you that recently, AIMS has developed a Center of Excellence for Transgender Health. So I am also associated with that, and so far there are 4 transgender persons actually got this Ayushman Bharat insurance help, and they got their gender affirmation surgery and all these things done. So I would also like to talk about 1 or 2 lines about the organization I'm associated with, Alliance India. We are very much closely working with the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Health Ministry, National AIDS Control Organization. So we are actually trying to develop a space where community and policymakers, everyone can come together. And coming back to the portal part, today also, I think I was trying to see how many of us actually got registered through that portal. So I have seen more than 21,000 transgender like people who have got so far transgender certificate and transgender identity card. So but considering the Indian census, that was carried in 2011. The official figure was 4.88 lakhs, though we know the actual number is quite high. So this for 21,000, it's a very, very little less, I mean, percentage actually. So that is the main concern of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment also, and I think community-based organizations and everyone. So I think we have to encourage our community to register at the portal to get the facility, because there are facilities. Only thing is that we have to go ahead, we have to know what are our rights, what are the provisions already available for us. That part I will definitely, request and emphasize for my community again and again. So please go for it.
Absolutely, hugely important. We'll continue our conversation. We're heading for a short break in Disha. When we return, we'll talk about the manner in which society, families, friends can also play a greater role in empowering the community of transgender. A short break, we'll be right back.
देश भर के 300 से भी अधिक संविधान सभा के सदस्यों की अथक परिश्रम और जोरदार मंथन के बाद भारत के लोगों ने स्वयं को अमृत कलश के रूप में दिया एक नायाब उपहार, संविधान। इसी जीवंत और पवित्र मार्गदर्शिका के बल पर हमें दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा और महान लोकतंत्र होने का गौरव प्राप्त है। 28 राज्यों और 8 केंद्र शासित प्रदेशों सहित 140 करोड़ से भी ज्यादा लोगों के विविधता भरे इस देश को एक सूत्र में पिरोता है हमारा संविधान। संविधान है हमारे देश का महाप्राण, जो हर एक नागरिक को सामाजिक, आर्थिक, राजनैतिक न्याय के साथ साथ प्रतिष्ठा, गरिमा और अवसर की समानता भी प्रदान करता है। गर्व है हमें अपने संविधान पर, जो हमें प्रकाश और आगे बढ़ने की प्रेरणा प्रदान करता है। स्वतंत्रता की 75 साल की गौरवपूर्ण यात्रा हमने इसकी मदद से पूरी की। समय समय पर जरूरत के अनुसार इसे और बेहतर किया। वंचितों तक इसकी पहुंच को और आसान बनाने को प्रतिबद्ध हैं हम। इसलिए लोकतंत्र के 75वें वर्ष में पूरे वर्ष हम करेंगे संविधान समर्पित। सबको न्याय, हर घर न्याय, नव भारत, नव संकल्प, विधि जागृति जैसे विविध अभियानों का आयोजन संविधान में लिखी समानता, कर्तव्य और अधिकारों के आधार पर ही हम संकल्प से सिद्धि की मंजिल भी हासिल करेंगे। हमारा संविधान, हमारा सम्मान।
Welcome back. You're watching Disha. In this episode, we're talking about rights and ways to empower the transgender community. Two eminent guests continue to be with us. I have with me Amrita Sarkar and Naz Joshi. Amrita, we were talking about the National Transgender Portal.
Yeah.
It's an important government reform. I also want to talk about the manner in which these reforms have made a difference to the lives of transgender persons. And what are the gap areas, if any, that you'd like to identify now?
Absolutely. So yes, this is an ongoing process, and definitely we are still, trying to collaborate with government, the organizations already working for the, this particular community. I think the next important step is sensitization, awareness part. That should be available for every needs. I mean, if I talk about education, if I talk about healthcare, if I talk about legal aid, if I talk about livelihood, I think these are the basic areas. I think we have to think that how we can sensitize the people who are associated with the sector. I think because you cannot change the mindset of the common people, even changing the law. If the common people is still in the old era or having some myths that okay, these people are aliens or something, so not so normal like us. So I think I'm not saying everyone is thinking like that, but still there is a gray area that is still happening.
Yeah.
And I think that is the main part, that every department has to be very little bit aware, little bit conscious about people like us. I think that is a better way.
That's the best way to go about it, the process. And Naz, the same question to you. Any areas, especially in the legal context, that you would like more attention to be put in our conversations? We've been talking about marriage laws and inheritance laws. Any areas that you'd like to underline in particular?
See, I want to tell one thing that, as Amrita in the beginning, she mentioned about the eve teasing, for that matter. There's so much of trans teasing that happens every day, and a lot of cat teasing happens. But then when we go to the legal authorities, we go to the police, I mean, they don't register a complaint easily. I mean, they would not want to write a FIR easily. I mean, I don't know. I mean, sure, there is the lack of awareness among them. They are not aware about the TG Acts. So there is one thing that we feel very, very sad. I mean, fine, it's okay in inheritance and for the laws for our, to getting the land, about the properties and everything. Everything gets fine. But the basic thing is, as our life doesn't matter for people. I mean, there can be somebody tomorrow who can just go and rape me, and people don't even want to write a complaint about it. There's so many harassments that goes in everyday basis which are not reported.
So you need to sensitize the administration itself.
Exactly,
the police
yeah.
and the ways in which the administration works is absolutely crucial. Amrita, you mentioned health challenges faced by the community in particular. I understand that the transgender community is also disproportionately impacted by health hazards like HIV/AIDS, and you're also working in that domain. Could you give us some insight into how big the problem is and what is being done for it?
Yes, so I think we can analyze the root cause. The root cause is definitely lack of education. The root cause is unacceptance at the family level. So if I'm not accepted at the family, then I have only two options, either going for sex work, either joining for the hijra, gharanas and all. I'm not saying those are bad, but we have to have much options, right? So that is the thing. Actually, when we do not have food, then definitely we are, forcing ourselves to have safe sex, to have unsafe sex with our clients. Sometimes if they are asking for, not using the condom for more pleasure, but then they definitely for more money, some community people, they agreed to have sex in an unsafe way without condom. So that's how I think they put themselves into risky behavior, making themselves vulnerable. So that is the part. And HIV/AIDS is definitely an issue, but also I would like to take you back during the COVID days, when there was some news came from Hyderabad or some space where there were some people were saying that transgender people are COVID carriers. So I think this is a part actually so the sensitization part, awareness part is coming again and again. So I like to give some kind of a example what we have done with support from National AIDS Control Organization. We did a sensitization workshop at AIMS. But I will like to take an opportunity because we were talking about health. I think mental health, old age part are also very, very much like burning issues for us, because we are talking about the transgender portal for my community, for the general people, for the organizations also. I like to inform. Couple of months back, there's a notification came from government. Now, any organization working for any key population or marginalized population like transgender, they can actually, apply for old age home. So this is a very new and exciting part, and they have mentioned even the people like transgender community, they can be given old age home support through this service, because we already have.
So there are those shelter homes and support systems.
12 shelter home, but there's some restriction that people who are 45 years or more than 45 years of age, they cannot stay here. So considering our request, I'm very, very much thankful that government has considered to build old age home where even trans people can be accommodated. That's a very good move.
Right. What Amrita mentioned, Naz, and it's really heartbreaking that for community members who are disowned by their own families, there are very few options for them to make a living. Many would want to know what is the space in schools and colleges and ordinary jobs that others do. What space is available for transgenders? Very briefly, if you could give us an insight on what is changing.
Today we have a lot of places in MNCs. I mean, they are hiring trans people, they are hiring LGBT people. It is a must, and they have changed so much that it's become very inclusive. I had interned last year in one of the MNCs just to check how's everything going, and I was very happy with the response that I got. I mean, I felt so inclusive at the workplace. HR policies are reforming for the transgenders and the LGBT people. They are bringing in laws so that how they can bring in our interest at work so that we can become more productive. So people have realized at a larger level that diversity and inclusion is very important, not just for sake of having it, but also to increase productivity of any company.
Thank you very much, Amrita. Thank you, Naz, for joining us in the program today and sharing those wonderful insights. And with that, we come to the close of this episode of Disha. We've been talking about rights of transgender community. Whatever our biological gender identity may be, remember, we're all born equal. And on that note, we'll conclude this edition of Disha. Namaskar.
Thank you so much.
देश भर के 300 से भी अधिक संविधान सभा के सदस्यों की अथक परिश्रम और जोरदार मंथन के बाद भारत के लोगों ने स्वयं को अमृत कलश के रूप में दिया एक नायाब उपहार, संविधान। इसी जीवंत और पवित्र मार्गदर्शिका के बल पर हमें दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा और महान लोकतंत्र होने का गौरव प्राप्त है। 28 राज्यों और 8 केंद्र शासित प्रदेशों सहित 140 करोड़ से भी ज्यादा लोगों के विविधता भरे इस देश को एक सूत्र में पिरोता है हमारा संविधान। संविधान है हमारे देश का महाप्राण, जो हर एक नागरिक को सामाजिक, आर्थिक, राजनैतिक न्याय के साथ साथ प्रतिष्ठा, गरिमा और अवसर की समानता भी प्रदान करता है। गर्व है हमें अपने संविधान पर, जो हमें प्रकाश और आगे बढ़ने की प्रेरणा प्रदान करता है। स्वतंत्रता की 75 साल की गौरवपूर्ण यात्रा हमने इसकी मदद से पूरी की। समय समय पर जरूरत के अनुसार इसे और बेहतर किया। वंचितों तक इसकी पहुंच को और आसान बनाने को प्रतिबद्ध हैं हम। इसलिए लोकतंत्र के 75वें वर्ष में पूरे वर्ष हम करेंगे संविधान समर्पित। सबको न्याय, हर घर न्याय, नव भारत, नव संकल्प, विधि जागृति जैसे विविध अभियानों का आयोजन संविधान में लिखी समानता, कर्तव्य और अधिकारों के आधार पर ही हम संकल्प से सिद्धि की मंजिल भी हासिल करेंगे। हमारा संविधान, हमारा सम्मान।